Hey, everybody. My name is Jeff Baskin. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer here at Upshop. I'm really excited to welcome you to the first installment of our webinar series titled Altitude. The name will make a lot more sense a little bit later. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Upshop, I did want to provide a very quick introduction on the company. Upshop has been building some store operations technology for over 30 years to provide connected SaaS-based solutions for our retailers. We are currently helping over 120 grocery and C-store partners, and more importantly, their frontline workers. We view the retail world through three different lenses: fresh, inventory intelligence, and e-commerce. And we believe that providing our partners with a unified platform to solve for 100% of their operational challenges is the key to success in this industry. Our technology provides a simplified, smarter, and more connected associate experience. So today's discussion will focus on that third lens that I mentioned, which is e-commerce, and even more focused on e-commerce fulfillment. A lot of retailers think of e-commerce fulfillment and think of simply the act of picking an order. Well, fulfillment's a lot more than that, and that is why Upshop has a complete order management solution, which serves as air traffic control from the second order is placed, directing the order to in-store employees or to gig labor, efficiently picking the order, communicating with the customer, staging the orders, and orchestrating last mile delivery and or pickup. And now that we got the obligatory advertisement out of the way, I did want to focus on our guest panelists. I have had the pleasure to work with Chad Peterson from Lowe's Foods and Matt Van Gilder from SpartanNash for about 5 years now or so. And I can tell you that they're true pioneers in the space. They have been way ahead of the curve building out the digital experience for their respective brands and haven't been scared to innovate and move fast to test new technologies that may benefit their customers and, more importantly, their associates. So instead of me continue to ramble on, I did want to let Matt and Chad introduce themselves. So thank you both for joining. I know you are extremely busy, so we really do appreciate your time, especially Matt, who I want to congratulate on the birth of his son, Orion, who was just born a couple weeks ago, and I think this is his first day back. So Matt, if you still have some energy left, go ahead and why don't you start and just give a quick introduction.
Be happy to, and thank you for the congratulations. Excited to be back. My name's Matt Van Gilder. I'm the Director of E-commerce and Digital Experience at SpartanNash, and I was doing the math earlier. I've been in the grocery industry now for 17 years, and 14 of it has been at SpartanNash, working in a variety of positions from the stores up into the corporate office. Where now my team focuses on all of our digital platforms and the user experience the customer has once they land on our platform. So that includes the e-commerce merchandising, the functionality of our apps and our sites, our third-party marketplace partnerships, but it also includes all of the fulfillment of our e-commerce orders. So the activities that our store teams take to give or provide service to our customers, pick the orders, carry it out to the customer's car, and then also deliver it to the customer or work with our last mile providers to deliver it to the customer. So really the whole e-commerce experience from end to end. So that's perfect for our discussion today, and looking forward to getting started.
Great. Thanks, Matt and Chad.
Yeah, good afternoon, or I guess good morning, depending on where you're at. So I'm newer in the grocery realm, so only 6 years in this particular industry. Been doing e-commerce, digital, and that realm for the better part of 23 years. So I feel really old. Part of Lowe's Foods, which is part of Alex Lee Retail. So we have 3 retail banners, and we're primarily focused on Lowe's Foods. Lowe's Foods to Go is our where we employ a lot of the or Upshop tech stack, and really proud of that. Been a great partnership, especially leaning into Shopper Kit for the last few years here. It's been a game changer for us. And we actually celebrated last year our 25th anniversary of offering e-commerce. So but there's so much room for growth, and I know we're going to talk about some of those opportunities today because it's been a very volatile market for grocery e-commerce. But again, the world's changed, and we know there's significantly more demand than before. So looking forward to the discussion today.
Great, and again, thank you so much for your time, and thank you again. So today we plan to cover a few specific topics that we've talked about. The first one is owning your own digital experience, the future of marketplaces, personalizing the digital shopper experience, and labor efficiencies and augmentation. And knowing the three of us, we've done this a few times, so a good chance we veer off course a little bit, so please bear with us, but hopefully it is beneficial. A quick reminder that if you do have any questions during the webinar, there should be a questions box somewhere on there. Feel free to use those, and if we have time at the very end, we will definitely make sure we try and address as many of those as possible. So the first topic that I'd like to get to today is owning your digital experience. A couple of years ago, we'd be sitting here talking about e-commerce only, almost as if it was a separate shopper and certainly a separate business channel on the P&L. But since then, the role has evolved significantly. There's a clear scope shift from just running an e-commerce business to becoming truly digital. So Matt, let's get started with you real quick. What gets you most excited about this new focus, building a digital experience for shoppers across several channels versus just focus on how shoppers place orders on a website?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. And at SpartanNash, we've recently evolved a bit in our approach to our omni-channel approach and our digital ecosystem for our shoppers. We initially launched our program corporate-wide 6 years ago called Shop the Fast Lane, and it was a very specific, dedicated website and mobile app focused on e-commerce within our grocery store chains across the several different banners we have. So we really treat it as a very distinct channel, which helped us put a lot of focus on it, helped us put a lot of very specific advertising and branding around the service and build the base of the customer. But what we've learned over time is that is one of many ways the customers interact with SpartanNash and any of the banners we have in our markets. And it's not just about looking at the e-commerce customer in that specific lens, but it's looking at that customer across all the different ways they can interact with us. And that includes curbside pickup and delivery within e-commerce and how they interact with us differently in those two channels digitally, but also how they shop with us in store. We're very excited about e-commerce. It's a fast growing part of the business, but it's still a very small part of our business. Brick and mortar is still king and still a vast majority. So we have to make sure that when we're engaging our customers digitally, we're thinking of it holistically across e-commerce and in store. So we want to be very specific about how we bring our digital ecosystem to life and focus not just on e-commerce, but a digital place that customers can come to interact with our brands, to shop with us, to learn more about products, whether they're in store or they're online.
That's great. I mean, it really is a true digital experience these days. And Chad, I'm glad you mentioned that. How Lowe's Foods has been taking grocery orders for 20 plus years. And I think you told me once that you were taking all those orders via phone at some point. I think you even still may have some customers that do that today. Mm-hmm. When you first looked at shifting to managing your own digital solution, what were the most important factors that you had to consider when making that switch?
Well, I mean, having been in the business for such a long time, it's been a constant evolution in technology. And much like what Matt was talking about, this concept of omni-channel commerce, and now I think a lot of folks are referring to it as unified commerce, which has a lot of different definitions, but I think everybody's heading in the same direction of how do we get kind of a single journey for, we call our customers guests, for the guest, regardless of what their purpose is on that particular day, whether it's to engage in some of our MarTech, place an order online, come in the store. I mean, everybody's coming into the store with this in their hands. So our decision tree is a lot broader. We're thinking about the digital journey now more than just the e-com journey, but we know that when households interact both ways, they shop online and in store, and we can motivate that behavior to not be a kind of a serial one channel household, the spend goes up. The transaction volume goes up, the loyalty goes up. And we also see an additional trip many times when a guest places an order online, they actually also come in the store because now they can take advantage of the amazing things that we all have to offer in our stores. So it's what we like to say is kind of a both and. So we recently replatformed a good amount of our technology infrastructure on native and e-com. But we are much more omni-channel experience now, and we're moving more to find ways to give guests features and functionality that are channel agnostic. Like we added a pretty robust in-store mode to our app first quarter this year, which we use all the time. But when we need to flip that over to an e-com order, we can do that. But you think about promotions, offers, digital shelf, weekly ad, all those things, they have to be agnostic. Right. So that we can serve it up when the guest needs us, and we're a greater part of their day because everybody's spending time on their phones and computers. That's, I think kind of in a nutshell, our philosophy as it stands today and will continue to be.
Yeah, so it's taking that experience of the mobile device and being able to not only just place an order, but use what you call in-store mode and help shoppers while they're both placing an e-commerce order, but also an in-store order. So that's exactly where everyone is headed or trying to get to. So Matt, you mentioned this, but delivery and in-store / curbside pickup are the two main fulfillment points for digital orders. Delivery is getting really expensive, and with inflation, that certainly doesn't help. And so pickup has grown considerably and seems to be a bigger part of the future. So pickup sales have increased approximately 2.5% year over year, while delivery contracted by almost 10%. So how has this shift affected operations and your strategy? And does it complicate things or does it make it easier?
I would say generally for us, it makes things a little bit easier, but in the way that we approach delivery, it's not as impactful. Our mix has always been quite a bit skewed towards curbside pickup, with a smaller portion going to delivery. That delivery slice of the pie certainly grew over the last couple of years with COVID, but then has kind of come back down
Right.
and normalized again. However, the way we approach it is, in very few of our stores, we actually deliver ourselves with our own fleet and our own people. We partner with our last mile providers, a variety of different providers across our different markets to actually fulfill the delivery portion from the store to the customer's door on our behalf. So our teams in store can really focus on the key differentiators, we think, of the service we provide to the customer while we're picking the order, the conversations we have with the customer while we're picking the order, not just to take care of out of stocks, but to provide upsell moments and provide dialogue with the customer to make it feel like a truly personalized experience. So we've continued to and double down on focusing on that in-store curbside core process. And then when we do offer delivery to the customer, that is then an add-on, typically helped by the last mile provider we have, to then take it from when we're done picking it to the customer's door.
Right. So you're really taking that completely in-house, essentially, with your third mile providers, or your last mile providers, I should say. So when you do that, Matt, labor is obviously, and it has been for years now, but it's still a huge consideration. And when you bring that in-house, what are some of the key factors to consider to ensure your employees in the store are efficient and can pick and stage orders, but also multitask in other areas?
So there's a couple of things that come to mind on being efficient with the people we have. I think there are some key things as part of the physical operational process we need to be cognizant of, and that is being able to track how quickly we're able to fulfill the order and how fast we're able to pick the items into the order itself, how quickly we're able to message our customers and take care of the inevitable out of stocks or substitutions. We want to minimize those, but they will happen. And making sure that the data that we're using is as accurate as possible for the personal shopper in the store to be able to find the item on the shelf once they're in the general area and be directed kind of in a smart route throughout the store from item to item. So it's important to have a platform that can pull all of that together and allow us to kind of see in real time how fast we're picking, who's running behind, who's leading the charge, making sure the data is clean and efficient for the customer or for the personal shoppers, and making sure that we're able to communicate clearly with the customer to get the order finished and ready, not just on time, but ahead of time if possible. And I think the other key thing is making sure that when we do have multiple platforms we're using to fill the order, that whether they're applications within the same company or applications across different companies, making sure that those play nice together and are unified in some way. Just as it's important for us to unify the experience for the customer across websites, apps, etc., it's super important for us to do that for the store associates too, because we're going to take our eye off the ball if we're having to log out of one application into another to take care of a customer. We're either not going to do it or we're going to not do it efficiently and run behind or not provide the level of service we need to. So making sure there's integration across multiple platforms for the associate is just as important.
Right. So utilizing one solution and not having them touch 5 different screens in order to complete an order is essential to that efficiency, it sounds like. And it's a great segue into my next question for Chad, which is when it comes to creating that platform that Matt was just talking about for executing that digital solution, I often refer to it as an ecosystem. And I know that we've spoken a lot about this in the past, but can you explain what it means to have that partner ecosystem solution in place to execute on your vision?
I mean, I think if you take the shopper kit aspect of the tech stack in this particular case, we kind of see that as kind of a hub that's enabled a lot of different parts of our business. So we talked about delivery a few minutes ago. We wouldn't be where we're at because we're also very pickup heavy. I mean, we have a long legacy doing it. Our guests love our pickup experience. We do surprise and delight and a number of other things, but we've grown delivery substantially, but we couldn't do that without having a partner that can actually kind of take care of the integrations, the APIs, and all the hooks that need to happen for us to get into that business further. So rewind back to probably 2019, we were replatforming with you guys, and we said, look, there's some other great middleware out there that helps us connect to any number of 3PLs to take our orders last mile because we don't do our own delivery. But we don't write that code. We're not in that business. We're a retailer. So that ecosystem, as it grew, really enabled us to kind of pick and choose different partners, put different strategies in place, test and learn, do a little hub and spoke over here, centralized fulfillment over there, van delivery over here, and get a whole communication layer in place with our guests. So, it's not just fulfillment, but how do we keep that communication? Like Matt just said, we have to set an expectation for the guest. If we don't have something in stock, we need to get in touch with them. And we've leveraged this infrastructure in an amazing way to kind of make that happen. And our team's not having to write any lines of code. So we just lean in further to say, what's the next idea? Can the tech stack and that ecosystem help us achieve that? The answer is usually yes. So we lean into it and we go execute it, and we can keep growing and changing the business. And it eliminates the need for us to go and find another tech partner to do this, and then more developers to come in and integrate that, and then more configurations and dashboards and admin tools. There's a lot less of that because it's kind of like a one-stop shop, which has been a big enabler, especially for even larger regionals. We don't have endless developers to build all this stuff. So we're pretty fortunate and a lot ahead as well.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what we talked about is being API driven. Looking at a software like ShopperKit to be that hub, and then can plug in a lot of other different types of solutions that kind of round out that entire process for you, from flyby to curbside pickup, and a lot of other providers out there that can really help with engagement and just about everything else from fulfillment perspective. So it's great. And you guys have been instrumental in kind of bringing all that together to help us. So we appreciate that. I know that. Matt, talking about major retailers are really, there's a shift toward the fresh assortment, and more than 80% of those are increasing the space they allocate to fresh prepared foods, grab and go, made to order products. Both of you have done a really good job of creating those sections inside of your stores. And fresh and prepared foods have always been an issue for fulfillment in the e-com order. So the question is, how can we help the customer order their weekly groceries, grab a large pepperoni pizza, rotisserie chicken, and a deli platter, and pick them all up at 5 p.m. From the same order? What's the best way to go about doing that?
Yeah, I think that we are on our way to actually getting to a place where we can provide that experience for our customers, where we can say, hey, here, go ahead and customize this pizza or this sandwich or this meal deal along with your grocery order that you're planning on picking up today. It's the same idea that we had when we put these things in the store years ago, is we want to provide a quick solution for customers while they're getting the rest of their groceries, because now they don't want to have to go home and cook too. They're already exhausted. Let's give them something easy. We want to bring that to life online, and I think we're getting to that place. I think the next phase for us is taking that same menu solution and finding ways to not just make it available for something that can happen alongside the weekly order that you may have set for 3-4 hours from now, but to also make it available for that customer to get on demand 30 minutes from now. I may not want my entire grocery order. I actually just want my dinner tonight. So I want to be able to put in the order for my pizza with chicken tenders on the side for the kids, with French fries and sodas. And I don't want to rely on the 2 to 3 hour lead time I'd have for a regular grocery order, but make that available on demand. So having multiple delivery fulfillment types within that channel, the delivery channel itself, or pickup for the customer, I think is sort of our next step to compete with some of the marketplaces like DoorDash, Uber Eats, et cetera, that a lot of us rely on currently today for that on-demand customer meal.
Yeah, and this is probably a topic that we can have on another webinar, but I think the shift of how grocery and C-stores are now directly competing with restaurants through those areas is a big topic. We probably don't have enough time for today, but we'll have to bring you guys back to chat about that. So with that, I do want to shift gears a little bit and talk about some of the online marketplaces and what the future is there. The likes of Instacart, Shipt, and DoorDash have dramatically changed over the years. Pre-COVID, I think for a lot of retailers, they were absolutely necessary for those that did not have e-commerce, and they were frankly a savior. Now I believe at least most retailers, I think, understand that they need to own the customer experience and utilize the data that comes along with that. So many grocers are starting to question the profitability and long-term strategy of solely relying on a third-party marketplace. And believe me, I'm not saying that there's no place for them. I believe there is, but it will look a lot different between now and what's to come here in the future. So leads us to a lot of interesting questions. I know there's a real debate on this, so let's get into it. So Matt, I just want to start with you. Prior to launching your own e-commerce, and you've been doing it for a while, what did you have in place for delivery, if anything?
We had nothing in place prior to launching our curbside platform. And in fact, we went ahead and launched our own in-house delivery for a little bit less than a year, our own vans, our own people, and understood the challenge of having your own fleet and maintaining that, and the cost of fuel and the cost of drivers. So I think you're exactly right, Jeff, saying that there is a place for marketplaces and even a coexistence between our first party platforms, like I mentioned earlier, and the marketplaces utilizing just the delivery arm of their marketplace program to support our own delivery. But it is definitely an interesting space and a highly volatile space. The overall marketplace sales activity that we see, at least we're partnering across Shipt, Uber, DoorDash, and Instacart. And I think that just generally talking about marketplaces, it's a great opportunity to find incremental customers and to get your brands in front of customers you may not have, or can do it more affordably than spending the marketing dollars yourself. But we do believe, for SpartanNash, that doubling down on your first party platform is the way to go and the way of the future, because you mentioned the data, that's an important part of it, but just being able to own the experience and leverage the equity of your own brand and to build that loyalty and that connection with the customer. You can't do that with a marketplace. So you have to be able to rely on your own digital ecosystem to make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chad, kind of similar question about how do you currently use marketplaces, if at all, and what do you think the future holds for the likes of Instacart, Shipt, DoorDash, and the ones that Matt just mentioned?
Yeah, Matt, volatile is a good word. So we're actually very similar to SpartanNash, and they're great colleagues of ours. So very, very similar, but we also diversify the portfolio. We lean in first and foremost to Lowe's Foods to Go, which is our owned e-commerce channel, first party. But we also are working with Instacart, Shipt, DoorDash, and others on the horizon because you want to be on the dashboard when that particular guest or family is beholden to Shipt or Instacart or DoorDash or whoever, right? Because you don't want to not be there. So that's been helpful through the pandemic. Now, of course, again, grocers who didn't have anything, the marketplaces are a good foray to get there. It's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next 12 to 18 months. We talk about this internally. We have to keep finding new avenues of digital capability, digital marketplace, digital revenue. We're getting big discounts as consumers. I guess they're getting big discounts from some of the marketplace providers as things settle out. I think there's also a significant struggle right now between cost and benefit. I think just all e-com is kind of leveling out a little bit, even owned, because there's generally incremental costs involved with placing an online grocery order, whether it's a shop fee, a pick fee, a delivery fee. You don't have the fee when you come in the store. And in an inflationary environment, Plus, in many cases, certain retailers mark up their products further in e-com. We don't do that, but that puts additional pressure on the channel. And I think consumers are identifying, how much do I really want to pay? How badly do I need my groceries in 30 minutes? I want to be able to deliver in 30 minutes or have them ready for pickup in 30 minutes. And I feel that we'll get there eventually as we get more efficient using some of these tools. But that's why we're seeing like the likes of, GoPuff, for example, or super fast delivery kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit in favor of either a much better bespoke personal shopping experience that companies like SpartanNash and Lowe's Foods offer, and or the guests are coming in the store, which is why it illuminates the importance of thinking omni-channel, because now everybody's been indoctrinated and I can do things with my grocer on my phone. So we have to be there and lean into that and take kind of some of those tailwinds that we had coming out of the pandemic. Even if they don't want to shop online, that's okay. We want to engage them online and give them the best we have to offer, promotions, offers, personalization, whatever. So they can, they can save, they can shop, they can enjoy the experience and spend more with us over time.
Right. Yeah. So it's truly it is that digital solution that we talked about earlier. And something else I mentioned earlier, which I think is a really interesting direction to potentially use some of these gig economy folks is, we've built our solution to allow retailers in that order management solution to send an order. As an order comes in, being able to kind of direct that order to an internal store employee or to a potential gig economy worker and have them pick it. And also then have two-way communication with customers if something goes wrong with a gig order. So, and we have several retailers that are testing this concept now, and we refer to that as labor augmentation. So with labor the way it is today, do you think there is a world where the gig economy players can help and potentially augment labor in stores where you might have lower volume in that store or during evening or early morning hours where there's not as much volume? Sorry, that's for Chad. If I didn't say that.
Yeah. So, and there's a lot of that going on. We know of many retailers leveraging that construct. I think it's a double-edged sword, and it's something we've looked at as well, but there's a host of complications with mixing and matching and blending kind of in-sourced or your own employees, we call them hosts, with outsource or gig contractors, right? Not to say that it's not something we're going to do, but I guess we've been fortunate that, our employees are amazing at what they do and they are our service. And there's a lot of technological complications, contractual things, liability things when you start to blend it. That's why we've kind of kept them separate to say we're going to run owned e-commerce this way, and we're going to run gig e-commerce through the marketplaces. I think there's a time and a place for it, and there have been a lot of providers who have we've talked about it, but nothing's really come to fruition yet. But I get it. It makes a lot of sense. I think making it happen is a whole different deal.
Yeah, it's
at least
interesting. Yeah, Matt. The other thing that some of the marketplace providers have been doing, like Instacart, they did $740 million in advertising revenue, and that's 30% of their overall revenue. They just launched retail media networks with Sprouts and a couple others, and this obviously is a large initiative for them with so much customer data. With advertising, do you think that'll be their primary focus? And do you guys have plans for a retail media network? What are your thoughts on that?
I think retail media networks are a huge opportunity for retailers across the industry, not exclusive to grocery. And yeah, there's been a lot of activity in Instacart. They have their Carrot Ads retail media network is how they brand it. That is available for CPGs to utilize for their marketplace, as well as Instacart clients on their other storefronts like Unata Legacy and Rosie Legacy. And then now I do believe that they plan to offer that as a tool to use for maybe potential other platforms, the Carrot Ads network itself. But I think that's just one example of many retail media networks that are being developed, in some cases in-house by retailers, in other cases by platform providers. And I think there's a lot of activity here because it's becoming quite evident that many of the CPGs are setting aside larger and larger amounts of funds that are specific and dedicated for retail media and this new automated way of reaching the customer digitally across these networks. So I think it's a big opportunity for retailers. It being a majority of income for Instacart or others, I don't think that'll be the case, but it's certainly a way to help offset the many of the fees that come along with running e-commerce, whether it's labor, whether it's delivery fees, whether it's platform fees. These retail media networks can help that indirect income flow in, as well as getting the right advertisements in front of the right customers, and being very much more specific about the advertising spend you do have.
Right. Yeah, I mean, so these marketplaces are going to be a really interesting sector to watch in the coming months and years. And so again, potentially another webinar topic for us. But let's shift over to another hot topic, which is personalization in the shopping experience. So I know that a great example of that is when I turn on Netflix. It's got all the shows that it thinks I should watch and the shows my daughters should watch. Facebook seems to know exactly what I want to buy every time I go on there, and they are most likely spot on. One of the large advantages of owning your own customer experience in e-commerce is the data, and that can be used to create a great customer experience with both online and in-store customers. So Matt, how does that data help you personalize the experience for your customers and create a potentially better overall shopping experience?
Yeah, data and personalization through data are it's a very important concept for SpartanNash, and a big part of the way we've gone to market with e-commerce since we started 6 years ago, and how we are still going to market with the new platforms that we have launched. As I mentioned at the top of the meeting, that we had Fastlane as our separate e-commerce brand, and now we have launched a new platform that is very specific to the banner that the customer shops at. So the name of the store that's on the front of the building the customer shops at. And along with these new sites and the new platform that they're going to through e-commerce, that's also the place they're going to for their rewards, whether they're shopping in store or shopping online. That's where they're going to view their weekly ad, whether in store or online, if they're shopping it into their cart. And along with that, we need to use the data that we have from the customer, their in-store transactions, their online transactions, to power that omni-channel experience, to put, like you've put on this slide here, Jeff, the right products, or in this case, the right platforms in front of the customer. So as soon as they log in,
right,
whether it's the first time they've used e-commerce, but they've shopped with us in store, or they've used e-commerce, but are planning to make a trip to the store, whatever channel they're using, we're pulling data from the other channel or both channels to populate the right offers and put the right discounts in front of them, the right items in front of them, so we can make it a streamlined process for the customer, make it truly convenient for them.
Yeah, it certainly does make it convenient. I don't mind it when Facebook throws those ads up that I may buy. But Chad, 75% of consumers are more likely to shop with a retailer that offers personalized recommendations similar to that. So you mentioned you launched a new platform, a new website. How are you addressing that with the new platform with your customers?
Yeah, I think we're still burning it in. The concept of personalization, and back to the discussion earlier about kind of that unified commerce strategy, we have to be able to kind of come up with a core data set and kind of backbone for the data about what our guests are doing, not just within our own backyard, but elsewhere digitally, so that we can serve up a truly personalized experience, whether it's a Google business listing, one of our videos coming up on YouTube, we talk about Facebook, Twitter, within our own Lowe's Foods to Go, our own Lowe's Foods app. That's a big challenge because I don't want to be talking to them one way when we know about them in our own world, and then generically elsewhere. Why can't we personalize every touch point? But again, that's a heavy lift. So we're scratching the surface, I think, within our own ecosystem, just to leverage the in-store and online behavioral data that we have to just do things like improve the personalization within our search, navigation, promotions and offers, digital coupons, and all those things that are personalizable, for lack of a better term. We have a ways to go to kind of get where we need to be, but it is a priority. And that's kind of the easy part, right? The hard part is figuring out, well, how do we take and mine that data so that when they are out on one of the other plethora of places they spend their time, how do we resonate the things that resonate with them in that world, so they keep thinking of us? Again, even if they don't wish to shop with us on that day, we want to be hyper relevant to them, even to the point where they set foot in a store. I want to know, and I want them to know that we know enough to kind of personalize an offer
Right.
or aisle information or, new products and give them the location of those products so they can go enjoy them. There's a lot of work to do to get there, but I think it's kind of what we all want. We just all have to figure out how to make it
It's
happen.
on the way. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's on the way
Yeah.
for sure. And Chad, speaking of kind of the in-store process, one drawback to pick up or curbside pickup and delivery is revenue loss at the checkout lane. So kids aren't grabbing a Hershey bar at the counter. You're making that up with obviously a larger basket size from your e-commerce order. But God, wouldn't it be great to add a coffee, a soda, or a Snickers bar, at the point of pickup? What are your thoughts on getting some of that impulse buy share back during a curbside or in-store pickup?
Oh, no doubt. It's something we've incubated and tested over the years. I think we'll have more of that to come as well, because generally, at least for most of us, by the time we pick and stage your transaction, we've settled out your order. So we have to figure out, how do we open up the architecture to have that incremental order, but handle all the credit card settlement and all those other things you have to knock out, because there is incremental revenue out there. We know that a certain proportion of guests actually on a daily basis place an online order, come to pick up, and still come into the store. And our fill rates are really good. So they're coming in and buying additional products that maybe they forgot about and thought about between the time we were done with the order and the time they came to the store. No doubt impulse is an opportunity there as well. But again, we have to make it frictionless. It has to be so easy. Right. And that's where you also draw on the idea of personalization. I don't want to show everybody the same Hershey bar bottle of water, because maybe that's not what they're interested in. Impulse can be anything, so the sky's the limit. You got 40, 50, 60,000 SKUs in a store. You can sell any of them if you hit them at the right time in the right place. And I think there's huge opportunity there for any e-commerce grocer. So we want to tap into that as well.
Yeah, and I think that's where like the ecosystem partnerships all kind of come together to hopefully solve for this. And I'm sure CPGs are going to be more than happy to help there so they can get some of that share back. Matt, similar question to you, but how can we talk about conversational commerce, and how can we use that to help increase the basket size after the initial order has been placed? When's the right time to communicate with that customer, from the time they place the order until the time they come to pick it up? Is there a right time?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of advancements within the AI space probably very shortly here that'll help us with this conversation and automating it. And I think the right time often is based on what order or what items are in the customer's order and what exactly we're picking. And when we're going through that, understanding, okay, we see these two items, we can correlate that maybe they're making this recipe or doing X, Y, and Z with these items, and potentially upselling one of those items or adding a third item into the mix that complements those two. And I think we'll be able to get there with some of the chatbot technology that's out today. All the advancements we're making in things like ChatGPT that can really easily understand the conversation and make a suggestion. I'll say that we aren't quite there yet with having that technology embedded into our picking process and platform, but we do it in an old school way. And we talked a lot about personalization earlier. And I think data-driven personalization is very vital and it's key to success, but so is like the real life personalization between the personal shopper picking the order and the customer that placed the order. And I promise I'll get back to my point, but our customers love our personal shoppers and that personal connection they have. So I view that personalization almost more important than the data-based personalization to really keep somebody long-term from a loyalty perspective. But because of that personalization and that connection, those personal shoppers know the customer week in, week out, what they order, and know when to upsell things, when the customer maybe forgot to put the milk on their order this time because they always have it on there. That we can make up some of those incremental sales that you would get if the customer was shopping in the store, just through the conversation that the personal shopper has with the customer while the order is being picked. So it's possible to do, I think, in the future via data, but it's also possible to do manual in the old school way, just getting to know your customers.
Yeah, and I think that's, in my opinion, I've been to both of your stores where I've seen your shoppers literally come out and have full conversations with the families that are coming to pick up, and even seen some hugs out in the parking lot. So it's great to see it. As much as I want to say that I think our technology is playing a huge role in this, It's really the people that are in your stores that are doing that. And I think that's the big difference between what some of these marketplaces are able to do. I mean, my daughter just came home from college, and several of her friends are picking orders as gig workers, and they're making sure they can get to their 15 or 20 orders, and they get a bonus and go home. So I really do think that is the big difference that you guys have done a really, really good job on. And so speaking of those guests or those and associates in the store, talking about labor efficiencies and that augmentation piece. And again, full disclaimer for everyone out there, both Lowe's and SpartanNash, as they have mentioned, both use Upshop's Shopper Kit order management solution. How has that helped? How has that technology helped empower your associates, team members inside the store, really have a positive impact on your customers? And I'll get to Chad first, but same question to you, Matt, as well.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned a moment ago the idea of removing friction, right? We have to get out of our own way. We ask if you just take e-commerce for the moment, they are power shoppers. They know the store the best of anybody in the store. They have to know a lot. There's a lot of tribal knowledge. I think that's improved dramatically with this particular tech stack because we've been able to remove steps, eliminate friction, map them through the store better. You know, Matt mentioned a bit about contacting the guests, but we just launched something very novel, the idea of contacting a guest via text, right? So that's not novel, but for us, we've been classically calling the guest as part of our service, and guests love it, but it's outdated. And just with that improvement that's currently kind of rolling out, we've seen a dramatic improvement, not just in fill rates, but guest satisfaction scores, additional items, upsell, cross-sell capability, but guests just love being in touch with their personal shopper. So that's super empowering to them because they're saving footsteps. They can contact the guest as they shop, and they're not having to place a phone call, place a voicemail, traverse the store again to go get the stuff that the guest approved. They're just doing it all in one fell swoop. But even thinking about the ecosystem, back to that, thinking about Shopper Kit, thinking about Itasca and some of the other tools in the stack, well, our personal shoppers are eyes and ears on the shelves every second of every day. So the ultimate would be a situation where those systems empower both those who are stocking the shelves and those who are picking the orders to have the visibility into near perfect in-stock rates for e-com orders, while also giving the store the intel they need to stock the shelves better and improve their ordering processes, their ordering cycles. That's almost like the epitome of where we'd like to be with truly empowering the store using the tech stack and not just e-com, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, that's right. And I'll just lay it. Yeah, that's exactly what we're thinking with kind of the providing 100% of the operational excellence kind of in the store with that technology. Because if you take that, and I'm going to ask Matt a question here about out of stocks and substitutions, but being able to take that knowledge of what's on the shelf, perpetual inventory, if it's in the back room or if it's on a truck coming, eliminating substitutions is absolutely crucial to continuing for all of us to continue to improve the associate experience inside the store to get them to have that be completely frictionless. So Matt, I may have even Chad and I may have a little stole your thunder a little bit on this one, but I did want to speak about that as I spoke to a retailer last week, and they said that 40% of their customer service issues were related to out of stocks, causing substitution. So not only are subs and out of stocks harmful to the customer experience, but they're extremely disruptive to the associate picking an order in the store, as we just discussed. So, and then the other statistics that I got was 44% of associates said managing inventory issues is their biggest frustration during a retail shift. So what are some ways, and Chad and I talked about it a little bit, but what are some ways that you try to help your associates in the store manage those substitutions and out of stocks?
Yeah, so there's a few different ways to approach substitutions and out of stocks, and one of the ways I think is kind of there's a few ways that historically that I think many grocers have approached this. One is ahead of the order placement online, trying to give the customer the option to pick substitutions and alternative products before they even place the order. And the second being, once the order has been placed, the picker in real time just says, hey, we're out of this. These are the things I can suggest. And I think that's sort of how many people have operated. But now that these systems have started to integrate, I think we can take both of those situations to the next level and integrate the real-time perpetual inventory into the shopping platform itself. So as the customer shopping, we're only going to ask them to maybe pick an alternative for products that we know are low on inventory or at risk of being out of stock. And that helps the customer not have to pick an alternative for every single product. They can be much more selective, or maybe just pick a different product entirely if they see it's low or out of stock. And then for those items that do end up being, that are placed on the order that end up being out of stock at the shelf, then being able to connect to the picking system that the customer or the personal shopper has to say, hey, there are actually 12 of these on hand in the store. So if we see that they're not on the shelf in kind of like the main home position for that product down aisle 12, there might be some on the end cap, there might be some in a display bin, there might be some in the back room. So we can actually direct that personal shopper to where the inventory is in the store to make sure we're fulfilling exactly what the customer ordered. And I think taking it a step further, thinking about labor and efficiencies really more holistically and helping out my brothers and sisters in center store merchandising and fresh merchandising, if that in fact is a hole that we're showing inventory for that we don't have, being able to do that cycle count right there as you're picking the order. So we're not sending somebody else from center store out to do that later, and cutting down on those events that need to take place. So I think there's a ton of opportunity for us to really improve one of those friction points for both the personal shopper and the customer when it comes out of stocks.
Right. Or if we know that that item is going to be out of stock for 24 or 48 hours, potentially even pulling that off of the website or in the mobile app and just not having them order it is another potential option, I would assume.
Yep.
And Matt, one last question for you. Earlier we discussed third-party marketplace and we talked a lot about that, but it's no longer just Instacart and Shipt. It's DoorDash and Uber and a lot of others that are making big pushes into grocery. And we discussed that labor augmentation piece. So as we talk about labor efficiencies, I think Chad answered this question earlier, but is SpartanNash looking at, is there a labor augmentation where in a store that doesn't do as much online volume as another, that you could potentially use one of these gig economy workers to use that? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's I'm intrigued by it. It's something that we've been thinking about for some time as well. I'm a huge believer in our own people and owning our own culture of the online shopping experience, and building out those long-term relationships with our customers by having solid core teams that pick the orders of personal shoppers in our stores. But there is something to be said too for kind of off hours or slower volume stores that it may be more difficult to fully maintain a staff of people that is required to pick those orders at the level of service that we expect. So I think there could be an opportunity or a case for using some of that augmentation to help us maybe capitalize on, like I said, later hour orders or early morning orders that we currently can't serve today. Something we're not actively working on today, but something that's definitely I'm interested in.
Yeah, again, I think it'll be interesting to see kind of where all that goes, and we're just at the beginning of I think a lot of that. But one last question for me for both of you, and Matt, you kind of touched on it earlier, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about ChatGPT and Bard, which is the Google AI tool. Our Upshop Solutions is using AI to enhance forecasting and improve operations on that end. But we're in the very beginning stages of this on the customer side. Where do you think that AI will play in the future for customer, specifically for grocery and C-store retailers? And I'll think Chad go first. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I think it's a lot to be determined. I think, honestly, you think about the personalization that we were talking about a moment ago within the digital journey. AI it's only going to be as good as the data, right? And with first party data becoming front and center, you think about the implications of a well implemented CDP, single view of the guest, the household data. You need that, solid transactional data that these things can consume and do something with. And then, of course, the presentation layer in the digital realm. I think, you mentioned some of the kind of inventory management side of things, projecting out of stocks and some of those things. I think there's a lot of potential positive implication in store, even on like the digital shelf side of things, right? We spend a lot of time focused on just making sure we have our digital assets published so our guests can order them. And how can some of the AI tools be brought to bear to pull the best and richest content without the need for, arduous integrations between systems?
Right.
But I think a lot of it's going to hit that digital experience and, truly figuring out how to personalize the experience. Because for grocery, you're talking tens of thousands of products and you're trying to tell a story to a guest in, 2 inches by 3 inches screen. And that's difficult, but maybe AI can help us in that as well.
Yeah. Matt, anything to add on that?
No, I agree. I think the customer is going to see the most direct difference on the way they interact with the retailer through the app, through the website, the products that are served up to them. AI is going to actually make it really personalized and get a lot more, not just relevant products, but truly products that they don't even know that they're interested in yet are going to get served up to them. But I also think on the other end of it too, both at a support and corporate level as well as at a store level, the AI is going to continue to make decision-making processes and kind of things that require a little bit of manual effort today even easier. So that's going to free up more labor for the associates running the program to focus on the customer, focus on the product, the truly important differentiating things to take that service to the next level.
Yeah, and it's moving fast. I mean, it's one of the faster moving technologies that I've ever seen. So I think where we are, where we started just back in November when I think ChatGPT first launched, and then you have all these other ones coming. It's moving pretty quick. So again, another webinar topic that we'll have to have you both back for. That's all the questions that I had, but I did want to bring in Mike Weber, who is our Chief Marketing Officer, who has been monitoring questions to see if there's anything from the audience. And also for some closing remarks from him.
Guys, we actually have a good one here because I think this is in the back of just talking about, Chad, you talking about, getting things done, shopping with your screen right in front of you. Got a good one around hearing your, either your thoughts on mobile hardware strategy. Question, how are mobile devices you're thinking about or rolling out increasing productivity? How are you looking at that baking into your strategy?
Well, I think if we're talking about hardware, and I think it's a good question, it's only as good as the platform running the hardware. I think most retailers now are using, the Zebra TC52, TC53 generation, Amazon's, everybody's using it. But, again, it depends on the apps that you run. And as long as the hardware is robust enough and tough enough to support it, you got to have the right strategy that brings the right software to bear. Because the device is only the window into the software. That's kind of how I see it philosophically. And we do a heck of a lot with one device. Where it used to be a multi-device stack, at least as far as e-com in the stores. Now it's a, one tool for everything type approach. And it's got to be robust and powerful and with really good technology running it.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. I think Chad's spot on. The hardware is almost becoming agnostic at this point. It's more about the software on it and how well those various applications work together to make the associates' lives easier.
Brilliant. So guys, thank you so much for the conversation. Just for attendees, if you have any questions we can't get to because we got to sort of close it down, we'll be happy to take those offline. Everybody will get a recording as well. We would like to take a moment from an Upshop standpoint to really get an announcement around our user conference, our first inaugural user conference, Altitude, in October. And what's exciting to us about and relevant to why we're talking about today is that the conversations just like these certainly around owning e-commerce, this journey to profitability in e-commerce, or trying to do what you can there, but as well as how retailers in this space are sort of like simplifying inventory and improving fresh operations. All those things will be retailer-led conversations that we're building around an experience in Nashville, October 8th through the 10th. So we're really excited. This is the first time we're announcing it to everybody on the webinar. More information will go out, and and we're going to continue to have conversations like these on a month-by-month basis leading up to Altitude. And a personal thanks as well to Chad and Matt, who have not only been exceptional partners for Upshop, but are very interested and have put their hands up to play a role in some of our sessions at that event. So thank you so much, guys. I know it's there's a day job, and then obviously there's a dad job. So I know that kind of stuff takes effort. So information will be out. You can check the website, upshop.com/altitude. I think there's one final slide. If you do me a favor to close this thing out. One more. Yeah, and big kudos, by the way. I know we've talked about ecosystem. There will be two other things. There will be our partners are supporting our events. We might have some of them on today. Upside is an elite partner of ours for the event, as well as Zebra. And there are more to come that are going to help support this event. And then finally, it's hard to live up to this discussion. We are going to try our best to talk about what's happening in terms of the implications for retailers, specifically grocery and food retail, for around FSMA 204. This is a hot topic. It's something that has to happen by 2026. And, we have our expert, Sally Robinson, that is really working with a lot of our partner retailers to get ahead of this and to get prepared. So fingers crossed, we will work as hard as this conversation to make it exciting. So appreciate the benchmark, guys. But if you're interested in our July conversation, please let us know, reach out, and we'll get you more information on what we're going to be covering then.
Great.
So big thanks to everybody who attended.
Yeah, thanks you for attending. Again, thank you, Matt. Thank you, Chad, for another great webinar. We really appreciate your time and effort into all this. And until next time, thank you, everybody.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
y'all.
guys.
Bye, guys.